Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always Lynn, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2026. I am Dave Bryan from SteelersDepot.com, and as usual with me on the podcast, Alex Kozora, fresh off of his first trip out to Latrobe for training camp, the first of well over a dozen we expect to take place this offseason with the Steelers here. It is July 29th. It is Wednesday, and it's almost 2:15 West Coast time. That put it about 5:15 East Coast time there for Alex. Alex, happy Wednesday and happy first day of training camp. I know you were glad to get back out there, and I know you got back out there early on this first day.
Great to be back. I was there bright and early, really good atmosphere, and frankly, my head is still spinning about the Mike McCarthy era and the changes in practice. We knew things would naturally be different. We talked to Cowboys and Packers guys about how different it would be, but hearing it and seeing it are two different things. So I will try to have coherent thoughts, Dave. No guarantee on that, but it is certainly a different feel. It is day one. Can't answer every question today, but a really good starting point.
All right, as your head spins around, I'll try to catch it, time up the revolutions just perfectly to get some questions in. You know, kind of the standard fare. A little bit of a warning. This will probably, our first show of these special edition podcasts usually run a little bit longer because we got kind of a lot to cover, and obviously with Mike McCarthy, now the head coach, we're going to go over kind of how I'm going to have Alex kind of lay out how the actual practice went at the top of the show for those of you that weren't there, so you can kind of visualize, I guess, in your head what took place. I figured that would be a good to knock out in the first show, and we don't know if it's going to stay, kind of the standard. Alex will keep us looped in throughout these special edition of the podcast of things that might have changed and all. But I know you're going to hear Alex talk about a lot of different things that actually did have his head spinning on this first day here. Alex, as we do at the top of every special edition of the Terrible Podcast, we like to thank our sponsor. And a sponsor that's been sponsoring these for numerous years now, and that would be touringplans.com and one Lynn Testa and all of his fine folks over there that run that site. So for those that aren't familiar with touringplans.com and Lynn Testa and the site, bring them up to speed real quick.
Yeah, for all the changes of camp, one constant is our great relationship and sponsorship from touringplans.com. Touring Plans uses math and science to help families save time and money at theme parks like Walt Disney World and Disneyland. You'll find a crowd calendar on their app and website showing the best days to visit. Each park step-by-step plans to avoid hours waiting in lines. The worst part of visiting these places, views from every hotel room, big discounts on theme park tickets. So if you're planning a trip to Disney, again, Walt Disney World, Disneyland, this is the team you want to work with, and they're led by Len Testa, a big-time Steeler fan, and he's been fantastic working with us. So reach out to their site, touringplans.com. The link is at the top of the page in today's camp notes. So can't thank them enough for continuing to sponsor and support these podcasts and just our training camp venture in general. And it's good to have that familiar face and all the new of the new season.
Absolutely, and we can't thank him enough. I mean, it's really become a an every year thing. And Lynn, I don't think there's much dialogue that even takes place this time of year. He's just a constant, and we certainly do appreciate him. Helps kind of defray the cost and all, especially when we got a guy like Tim Rice out there taking photos for us, and obviously Alex's gas and time going back and forth forth there. So shout out to Lynn Testa and the fine folks of Touring Plans. We will be shouting them out at the top of every special edition of the Terrible Podcast moving forward there. All right, with that out of the way, Mike McCarthy during training camp is speaking before practice, whereas Mike Tomlin used to speak after practice. So when it comes to the kind of the housekeeping portion, and more specifically, maybe injuries that take place during practices, obviously, if we think they're noticeable throughout practices, we will use this portion to kind of recap those. And Mike McCarthy spoke obviously to the media first thing this morning. Nothing really has changed. He did mention that Joey Porter Jr., something flared up, I guess, with his back yesterday during the conditioning test. Believe what you will, as far people are going to have their own thoughts and ideas on that. The fact of the matter is he's on active PUP right now. It sounds like it's going to be, day to day, according to Mike McCarthy. He's not putting any kind of time frame on it. Also, starting off camp on the active PUP list was Jalen Ramsey, which we believe a knee issue sustained during I guess mandatory minicamp, and then Dante Kent, technically second year cornerback out of Central Michigan, obviously was a draft pick last year, had that ruined by two different injuries, really. Came back from the first injury, and then a knee injury that we think required surgery, and he's still rehabbing for that. So those three players on the active PUP list to start. And what else did you notice as far as guys maybe kind of being limited today during the first training camp practice, Alex?
The only other name in that regard, in terms of somebody I noticed, was some sort of limitation with strong safety Deshaun Elliott, as he works back from that pretty nasty 2025 knee leg injury suffered against Green Bay. He did dress, he did go through 7-on-7, the individual work. I did not see him out there in the team period. He was standing 30 yards back just observing. He did not work in that full 11-on-11 period they ran through, and so might be a little bit of cautiousness as he works fully back, but obviously pretty close and was still pretty active overall on the day. Broderick Jones working in full to my observation, and so that's really good for him. Will that maintain whenever the pads come on? Will they sort of manage his reps throughout? We'll have to see, but good news on the health front as far as I can tell. And just to kind of just to add on to it, Jalen Ramsey walked down the stairs midway through practice without a limp, without a brace, so that is a positive sign, but Omar Khan's still indicating it'll take a couple weeks for him to officially get back. Porter was walking around fine, and Dante Kent had a sleeve on his left leg, and so I assume it was the left knee that he tore that ACL in last year. He did some jogging early part of practice with a trainer watching, so don't know when his timetable to return is, but a little active, and again, looks like left leg, left knee for Dante Kent.
And the good news with Elliott, obviously, he was healthy enough to avoid the PUP list. So I imagine they'll bring him along slowly here, and he'll start practicing. They'll probably start ramping it up as things go along here. But all right, and unfortunately, as is the case throughout training camps, that list will grow and then shrink and grow, and obviously we'll be following that on a nightly basis on these shows here. All right, Alex, less of me and more of you during these shows is always a lot better. Really, any show is probably better with more of you and less than me. But why don't you, as I mentioned in the opening there, why don't you kind of lay out for everybody, how practice, really take us from the time, I guess, everybody starts coming down the stairs until the end of practice, kind of the format and the periods and all of that still probably has your head spinning.
Yeah, it certainly still is. And so I'm going to try to go through my notes, which is even more scribble than usual, to really map out how practice went. It's all in my notes. I just have to be able to translate it into a way that I and others can understand.
Are you going to need shorthand for your shorthand?
I'm going to need shorthand for my shorthand. That's a great way to put it. So the beginning of practice was pretty similar. That's about the only thing that felt kind of similar. Team comes down. First player out, by the way, for those keeping score at home, running back Travis Homer, about 10:35 AM Peyton Wilson, who normally first guy out, came down a couple minutes later with Jack Sawyer and Stephen Jones. So they go through stretch line, a little bit of you kind of warm up period. Now the coaching staff is off the field, like the spring, which was reported. The coaching staff does not take the field until after stretch line. It's the strength and conditioning staff to really preserve every second of time that they can coaches can work with players. So stretch line, they go through their warm up install period. That's about the same, and then from there things get pretty different and really fast tempo up the pace of practice. I think they went into their team period next, 11-11, which was dual team periods, one on the middle field with the backups, one on the near field with the starters. It's never happened before under Mike Tomlin, working simultaneous 11-on-11 sessions. From there, you had a mix of individual work, skeleton work. There were some periods that were 3-4 minutes, some of the longer ones 8-9 minutes. There's somebody with a megaphone. It might be Steve Skarnecchia or Tim Burbernich, one of the coaches. I haven't confirmed who, but he's the one calling out everything. There are 2-minute hydration breaks that will break up practice, and that's all regimented out. And coach is calling that out when there's 1 minute left. There's a clock on the scoreboard that counts everything down, so that'll break up practice a bit. Then they basically finish doing some situational work today, a lot of 2-minute work, end a half, end a game type of stuff. That's 7-on-7, and also I think some 11-on-11. And so that's kind of the dirty way to try to explain it. So it starts out, stretch line, warm up, team period, individual. There's special teams period in there too, and then situational football to end practice.
And the hydration breaks mixed in. I thought we were done with that with the World Cup.
Right. They're back.
They're back. All right. I think the main word being used around the Twitterverse today was tempo.
Yeah.
What did you think of the tempo? How I imagine it was noticeable. Everybody's using that word. I mean, very very rigid, quick tempo. I imagine, and I guess the other thing. How long was practice?
First horn went off at 11:09, I think, for stretch line. I want to say maybe 11:19. They actually started practice, and then it ended at 12:47 by my watch. Now, the first day is always a bit shorter. I think even looking at the team's schedule, it was supposed to end 12:46, so basically right on time. They'll get a little bit longer, which is even how Mike Tomlin's training camps went. So whatever the math is on that hour and a half, give or take, that was the length of practice. But you're right. The big takeaway is the tempo, the pace of practice, much, much quicker than anything Mike Tomlin ever did. That's not good or bad. I think people will like it and embrace it, if I had to guess, but that's just the difference of it all. And probably just maximizing reps, too, in terms of the dual 11-on-11 session. So guys not standing around waiting their turn to get, into the team period, to, multiple gunners working at once, to just the whole pace of everything was really ramped up. And so that was one noticeable change, which makes my job a little bit harder, but we'll adjust to it. But yeah, the pace of practice, I mean, it was go, 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 no standing around, and also no sitting. The benches, which were a staple of training camp, are removed. And so Aaron Rodgers had to sit on the grass to put on his cleats today. You don't get to sit and relax and find some shade. So, just everything a little bit different.
All right. You answered. I was going to ask you about the benches. You answered that. What? Give me a sense of what Mike McCarthy did throughout the day.
Oh, man. I mean, I think he was with the quarterbacks a decent amount of time, maybe not the entire time. At one point, he was talking with Omar Khan. Then after practice, he spoke with Omar Khan, Art Rooney II, and Daniel Martin Rooney. They probably will convene, I imagine, after every single practice. So I'll have a day where I'll try to follow him around a little more closely to see exactly where he's at throughout the entire scope of practice. But I don't have a great answer for everywhere that he was at today. If there is one similarity, like Mike Tomlin, he wore all black, a black hoodie, black long pants. Mike Tomlin did that in sort of solidarity of the heat of Latrobe. So don't know if that's McCarthy's intent or not, but that's what he was wearing today. And he filtered around with the quarterbacks a fair amount, but I couldn't tell you exactly his entire movements.
And he had the walkie-talkie, right?
Yep, he's your play caller. And so even though Brian Angelico is the OC, McCarthy's the one calling the plays. And so in that install period, he's standing behind the quarterbacks with the black walkie-talkie, calling in the plays into the headset. And so I imagine it will be what he'll be doing on game day too.
All right, so it obviously felt like they're getting more done, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
with the players not standing around and splitting the fields up and having the first, having one set on one field and one set on the other. There's if you had Your head was probably trying to spin. I don't know how you're going to track track all that moving forward and stats and whatnot, because I know you like to do that. That
Mhm.
might be challenging
Yep.
when it comes to doing that. But did it? One of the questions I said I was going to have for you the other day on the podcast was, how fluid did it feel? Did it feel like they had ran the fire drill before and kind of knew loosely what to expect out there?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they were doing similar type of things in the spring. I mean, they did sort of a spring workout because you're not in pads yet and practice a little bit shorter. So, yeah, I wasn't there for the spring, so I don't know exactly how much this mirrored that, but I assume, they've been installing it, and so the plays aren't new, and I'm sure what to expect isn't completely brand new either. But yeah, it was continuous, I would say. There was not a lot of standing around or hurry up and wait, and this group kind of waits for this group to get something done. I mean, everyone's working basically all the time. And so I would say it's more efficient, more effective, and certainly more multiple in terms of there's always something happening somewhere. It's not a lot of just stand around and watch this guy go through his rep. And so I think that's certainly probably a positive development to really maximize this limited time.
All right. How much of a kind of 11 on 11 stuff did you see roughly?
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of it out of the gate. They had the one period, the dual periods early on in practice, and then a little bit later. But a lot of that was situational too, where even some of their 2 minute drill stuff is situational. And so even 11 on 11 was sometimes we're not really doing a drive. It's not just here's first and 10, and here's a 5 yard completion, here's second and 5. It's okay, here's first and 10, and now we're going to go to it's third down, and now we're going to go to it's 4 seconds left. And it just sort of, it's almost moments more than it is free flowing drive. Still a little bit of that early in practice, but the situational part really wasn't about, okay, let's run the 2 minute drill like we're going to run it exactly to a T in a game. We're going to kind of work different situations and move the ball around, and we're going to have to line the ball up exactly where it was caught and the play was down before. So I would say it was probably more about moments than it was necessarily just free flowing, go out there and play football.
All right, take me back to the opening practices under Mike Tomlin. Did they run 7 on 7? Yeah, 7 shots as part of that, even in the first practice, and obviously no 7 shots today, right? Does it feel like 7 shots is not going to be part of this?
It feels like it's not gonna be part of this. I can't guarantee that because even under Tomlin, sometimes in the first and last practice, they would not go with 7 shots, and so I wanna give it a couple more days to confirm that, but just based on how things look, I would not anticipate 7 shots being a thing under Mike McCarthy.
All right, as you continue to go through your notes here, and you said at some point here on an off day, you're probably going to lay out a post as far as maybe structure from what you've
Mhm.
seen after X amount of practices and all. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about kind of the loose overview and the flow of practice?
No, I think that covers it well, but yeah, it just felt like a little more, I don't wanna say intentional because I don't wanna say it's necessarily like a slight on how it was before, but I would just maximizing the time, and it felt like there was more evidence of that under Mike McCarthy, but we'll keep watching, we'll see what day-to-day looks like, we'll see certainly what happens when the practices get longer, when the pads come on, we shall see. I'll also say less, really no true competition period. Mike Tomlin loved the one-on-one type of stuff, receiver, DB, O-line, D-line, really didn't see any of that today. So will that
Okay.
change going forward when the Pats come on? It could, but the sense I got when I talked to those Packers and Cowboys reporters earlier this month that McCarthy was not a big competition one-on-one kind of guy. It was more team or really group where it might not be 11 on 11, but 7 on 7, that kind of stuff, or working concepts. They're working 3 on 3, 3 out routes in the pattern versus 3 defenders at one point. So kind of felt more group oriented than it was one-on-one.
All right, good info there. All right, are you ready to start going through some of these position groups now?
Sure, let's do it.
All right, let's start. Biggest questions. Some of the biggest questions I think we had going into training camp was offensive line groupings and rotations, and specifically the first team guys. And we got a few of those questions answered. And you have the full rotations, I guess, of the 3 line sets. So why don't you take us through that?
Yeah, here's first, second, third team from the install period. A couple of caveats to it, but I'll just read it off first. So first team, Troy Fautanu at left tackle, Mason McCormick, left guard, Zach Frazier at center, Spencer Anderson, right guard, Dylan Cook, right tackle. Second team, Broderick Jones at left tackle, Brock Hoffman, left guard, Ryan McCullum at center, Stephen Jones at right guard, and first round pick Maxi Honachor at right tackle. Third team, Jack Driscoll at left tackle, Lorenzo Thompson, left guard, Greg Crippen, the rookie at center, Jennings Dunker, the third-round rookie at right guard, and Doug Nestor at right tackle. Now, I should say, and it's important to know that Brock Hoffman did sort of filter in at first team guard spot, first team center spot. That's not a slight against Frazier, I'm sure, just trying to get Hoffman worked in. And so there was some fluidity. I think Mike McCarthy talked about this pre-practice too, position flex and getting some guys moving and shaking. And so Hoffman was sort of rotating in at both guard spots and at center. Obviously, he's got a lot of history with Mike McCarthy, but that's sort of how the lines went, broadly speaking.
All right. And they would mix and match occasionally. I think snap here or two with guy get first team. Did I see some of that?
Yeah, like I said, Hoffman was the one kind of doing that, maybe taking a rep from Frazier at center or Anderson at right guard or even McCormick at left guard. McCormick, by the way, during one of the warm-up periods, this is not team, it's just quarterback and center snapping, was doing a little bit of center work too. He wasn't the main guy. It was mainly Hoffman and Frazier and McCullum and Crippen, but McCormick was over there with that group. And so that's just a notable note, maybe emergency center situation. McCormick could be that guy.
All right. A couple of these as we went through the 90 and 30 series, a couple of these offensive linemen were kind of, could this guy be tackle or guard? We'll see how they go there. I think some notable things are Stephen Jones at guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yeah, he's a guy that can play inside, outside. So right now, working at right guard.
Okay. Lorenzo Thompson was a guy we thought, tackle guard maybe. He was at guard, correct?
Correct. Third team left guard.
All right. And very interesting, Doug Nestor, who, was another one that played up and down the line, was at tackle, was he not?
Right, third team right tackle. He's got a tackle background from his days at WVU. Played mostly guard last year, I think exclusively left and right guard, but right tackle. And then Jennings Dunker running third team. So we'll see if he can challenge for a spot. But initial impression is it's really Anderson and Hoffman.
All right. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? Obviously not in pads. We learn more about those guys once we get into the preseason games, and more specifically when the pads come on, and even then it's kind of hard to watch. But what was kind of your takeaway from just overall performances, I guess?
Yeah, from an evaluation standpoint, with day one, with all the newness, with them not in pads, no real run plays. I mean, it's really hard to evaluate anything from that standpoint. I would just say it felt clean. Center quarterback snaps exchanges were clean. They were under center a good bit during that install warm up period. They were under center 80% of the time, and so probably going to get more of that flair with that West Coast roots that Mike McCarthy has. Aaron Rodgers talking about that yesterday. So I don't have much in terms of this guy looked good or this guy struggled. It's be grasping at straws that I really gave you a true play-by-play of who looked good, but I just thought it felt clean, and it's good to get that lay of the land that first time out.
All right, let's jump immediately to the quarterback position here. Take us through what the quarterbacks got done today, and who may have looked who looked okay, who maybe disappointed a little bit. I know it's first practice, so we always caution people to not read too terribly much into that kind of stuff. But thoughts on the quarterbacks today?
Yeah, I would say just overall defense won the day. The quarterbacks were really, their completions were short underneath. A couple of the deep balls did not land. The defense did a good job batting some of that stuff away. I mean, Rodgers first team, Rudolph second team, Howard third team, and then Aller kind of mixing in too. I don't know if you want to call that fourth team or just kind of filtering in third team, kind of trading off some reps there. I mean, Aller was up and down. There were a couple of good throws. He had a good pump fake that Frymuth, the last play of practice, he hit Robert Tonyan for a touchdown down the seam, beating Cole Holcomb. That was a good ball. Then a couple of bad ones. I think it was a 7-on-7, not a full team period, but tried to force a check down to Jalen Moore, and Cole Holcomb tipped it away. Peyton Wilson picked it off. And so you kind of had a mix of a good and bad from Drew Aller, but you're going to ebb and flow throughout this process. And so it's just that starting point for a rookie like him.
All right. Mason Rudolph, all of the second team snaps as far as you could tell?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment that he was running, next guy in when Rodgers would sub out. So again, there's a lot of mixing and matching with this whole team, and that'll probably be increasingly a hallmark under Mike McCarthy, where it's not just your first string and your second string, and this is when you come in after this guy. It might be more rotation, but Rudolph certainly ahead of Howard and Aller.
All right, run us through the running back position groups and rotations.
If you're curious, Jalen Warren got the initial first snap install. The next snap, Dowdle came in, and so you're going to see those guys trade off. Probably saw a little more. I don't know if I saw more of Warren than Dowdle today, but I wasn't, keeping it track with super intent because I know those guys are going to split some time. Caleb Johnson also mixing in with the ones, and so we'll see what happens there. Obviously, without them in pads, I mean, they didn't have actually, I think, one true run play today during team, and so there's no real evaluation there. It'd be hard, even if they had something. Didn't see much of Heidenreich at running back. Saw him a bit on special teams we can touch on. He was working, and I want to double check it because I didn't get to see a lot of reps with them. I think it was Heidenreich was working that second team up man, and so that's interesting for the rookie. Travis Homer, though, was definitely, I can confirm this, working first team up man, which is what he's done in the past, and so he's experienced there, and that certainly gives him a potential leg up. One note on Caleb Johnson. There was a check down that Rudolph threw to him, left side, kind of reached back, made a nice catch initially, but then Carson Bruner came up, sort of popped him, and the ball came out. Debate over fumble, incompletion. They called it incomplete, but you want to see Johnson catch the ball cleanly. He did redeem himself. The next rep, caught the ball, check down, no issue there. But just want to see what Johnson can do beyond being a runner, catch the ball, pass protection, special teams. Need to clean up any issues finishing the play.
All right. Any Riley Nowakowski in the backfield?
I don't think I saw him at fullback. He was working on special teams, first team right wing, and so that's good for him. He's got the size and profile, somebody that can do that. But I don't think anything at fullback. I'll have to keep that in mind to check for it tomorrow, though.
All right. How about the wide receiver group in the rotations?
Yeah, I would say Roman Wilson over Jeremy Bernard, which is not a surprise, just given Bernard's a rookie and going to have to earn his keep. Some mixing and matching there, too, but you want to talk about kind of your base 11 personnel receivers, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman on the outside, Roman Wilson in the slot, just kind of a starting point to talk about it. I thought Roman did a couple of nice things against zone coverage, sitting down, making himself available and making some catches underneath. But there was one miscommunication between him and Rodgers later in practice, running a drag against zone. I think Rodgers wanted Wilson to sit it down. He didn't. Ball's behind, incomplete. They talked a little bit after practice, or after the rep, I should say, about what Rodgers wanted. A couple reps later, Bernard running a corner route, 7 route to the right sideline. Ball's really underthrown or really short. Rodgers threw it. I assume Bernard did not run the route at the correct depth. And so these young guys still trying to get on the same page and still, iron things out with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Anything else? Brandon Smith had a really nice back shoulder grab today from Rodgers against Jamel Dean, too, a starting caliber corner they paid handsomely this offseason in for agency. So I thought Brandon Smith was getting a bit more burned than the other backup receivers today.
All right. Anybody else lower down the depth chart really catch your eye?
No, like I said, the defense won the day. There weren't a ton of downfield throws. Rodgers looked Metcalf's way a lot, but deeper down the depth chart, Cole Burgess had a deep ball chance. It was good coverage by Everett. He dove for it. It was incomplete. So, those guys are working, though. Hurlman getting a lot of reps. Burgess getting a couple of reps, too. I didn't see much of Skoranek at receiver today. I want to kind of look at that for tomorrow, but nothing too much of note. Weejan, I didn't see a ton of him at receiver, too. Did have one catch during, I think, one of the 7-on-7 sessions, but it was just a short little drag route, so not much there.
All right. How about the tight ends then?
Whatever it's worth, I don't want to read too much into this stuff, but during that install period, kind of the first time the offense came together, it wasn't against the defense, it's just the initial install while the defense worked separately, but they were in 12 personnel for the first 2 snaps. And so we talk a lot about the 11 personnel we expect to see, and I'm sure we will see a lot more from McCarthy this year than Arthur Smith in the past, but maybe almost a sign of not forgetting about the tight ends coming out in 12 personnel, under center, kind of the old school football approach there with Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. Freiermuth pretty active in terms of being targeted today. Maybe not a ton of receptions, but Rodgers gave him a look plenty, and then threw one seam ball to Darnell Washington that Patrick Queen tipped away. So pretty active day for Freiermuth, and Tunyon also getting a lot of targets in the pass game. Doesn't mean a ton, but just something notable on day number 1.
All right. I meant to ask you about Broderick Jones. Does he look light?
I'm always the worst at guessing at somebody's weight. I don't have the eye for it. He doesn't look huge. I mean, he might be, I don't see a big difference from last year. Maybe he is a little bit lighter, and that would just make sense from him not being able to work fully and being limited in some of the weight room stuff back in the spring. But It's not like I sat there and said, "Wow, this guy looks completely different and like looks a lot skinnier." So I'm sure Tim Rice will have some photos of him, and maybe he's already posted some. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you can have a better eye for that than I can, but I'm just happy he's out there working pretty much in full.
All right, Darnell Washington was the other one. He's still a mountain of a man, I'll tell you that. Uh, Anything that you could pick up on physical appearance with him?
Yeah, I did take a good look to try to gauge it today. I mean, he doesn't look, like he's overweight or out of shape. And so he looked good to me, but he's always, I mean, whether you're 300 or 311, you're still a mountain of a man at tight end. And so it all kind of looks the same, I think, at some point. But hey, it looked fine to me. He talked about the weight requirements and the weigh-ins and the fines. And so I assume he got his weight down to where it needs to be to protect his wallet. So I didn't have a lot of thoughts. My only thought is I thought maybe Jack Sawyer, when I saw him, looked a little bit slimmer than a year ago. It's always hard. Again, I'm just so bad at judging that. But that was one impression when I saw Sawyer come down the stairs early in practice. I thought this guy looks a little like he dropped a bit of weight compared to last year.
All right. What was kind of your overarching thought on things out of under center stuff? Maybe just the work that they got in the kind of the 2 minute. Do you have any kind of just overarching thoughts on what you observed from the offense today? Good, bad, indifferent type stuff.
Pass game was really relegated to short stuff. There wasn't many competitive completions downfield. I would say the defense won the day. Saw that under center, quite a bit in the install period, maybe a little less in team, but they were working situational end to half, 2 minute stuff where you're naturally going to be in shotgun. So we'll keep watching it, but the takeaway is the defense won the day.
All right. Let's move on over to the defense and let's start on the defensive line here. And do you have some groupings when it comes to that?
Yeah, it's still something I want to note and watch for. Sebastian Joseph Day, to my eye, was playing defensive end, not nose tackle. I saw Benton and Y.A. Black at nose tackle. They mixed and matched the nickel pairings, whether that was Benton and I think Hayward or Harmon and Hayward. So just kind of, good rotation there. It's hard to really say this is who was running where, but early goings, it looked like Benton's still going to play some nose tackle and Joseph Day's going to play defensive end.
Okay, what about some of the other groupings that maybe you noticed beyond first, second team, maybe?
Yeah, I didn't get a good feel deeper down the depth chart, and with them being in sub-package stuff or doing a lot of 7-on-7 or non-D-line work, it was harder to really get a read on that. During one base grouping in team with the twos, it was Joseph Day at left defensive end, Y.A. Black at nose tackle, and Dean Lowry at right defensive end. That's as kind of far down the depth chart as I got. So something to watch for. Maybe if they do a situation where they're working, first down type stuff and more bigger personnel groupings, we'll be able to observe that. But there weren't a ton of the 11 on 11 today, and what was there was a lot of situational pass situation type stuff, and so you're just not in base in those moments, and so it's harder to really observe the D line. And then, of course, in terms of performance, like the offensive line, it's really hard to give an evaluation on given the environment and the attire, them being padless and just the first day out.
All right, so obviously not a lot of snaps probably for guys like Anthony Goodlow, Kevin Jabady Jr., Rubio.
Right. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to note there. I saw Patrick Graham talking to Jobity during one of the individual periods as they were talking about working on his punch and placement. But in terms of, drill or team period type stuff, I don't have a lot for you.
All right, what went on at inside linebacker?
There was some rotation. It was still Queen and Wilson coming out, but Cole Holcomb was filtering in just fine. And so he was getting work where there'd be times where it was Wilson and Holcomb and times where it was Queen and Holcomb. So still want to watch that going forward. Did not see much Malik Harrison out there now that I think about it. I saw a lot of Carson Bruner. And so maybe that lends credence to your idea about Harrison potentially getting squeezed, but still so early. Injuries, of course, can change a lot. But yeah, Cole Holcomb was probably that. You want to talk about third inside linebacker off the rip? It's probably Holcomb.
All right, did you get a sense on some of these kind of inside outside guys? Jamin Davis, who was the other one?
Winman.
Winman.
I saw Jamin Davis playing edge during the 1-2 minute drill, not off ball linebacker, and so I guess that's what he was doing in the spring. So that kind of tracks still. I don't recall seeing Winman out there. He may have been, but I didn't see it or didn't note it. So Davis, to what I saw, was playing outside linebacker on the edges.
All right, and I think you already mentioned, and I saw kind of a clip floating around. Holcomb had the pass breakup that you mentioned on
Hmm.
one of them there. I think that was that 7-on-7. I think that it was
Yeah, it was a
certainly wasn't
7-on-7.
team
Right.
drill there. So I think that was, and then I think Peyton Wilson was the one that came down with that on the
Correct.
deflected ball there. Outside linebacker group, and I imagine the lines aren't very long with that group then.
No, not terribly, just given the depth chart. But the intrigue point here is when they went to that end of half session, they had the three outside linebacker package. So it was Watt at left defensive end, hand on the ground, Highsmith right side, and then Nick Herbig over the ball, playing kind of that off ball linebacker, middle linebacker, with Patrick Queen being the other linebacker on the field. And so that's not new. Pittsburgh was doing that last year, as we've talked about plenty. When the group was healthy, they were showing that even in camp last year. So I don't want to pretend like this is something radically different, but it is showing that early. I didn't get a great sense of what moved around. I think maybe he did a little bit. I think he talked about that a little bit today. I want to pay more attention to that going forward, but I'm just kind of introducing some of those things that's been harped on a lot. And even when the second teamers came in, they kept that three outside linebacker package. It was Julius Welshoff on the right side, Jamin Davis on the left side, and Jack Sawyer playing that off-ball linebacker over the A gap. That's where he was aligned, and so it's not just because it's Watt, Herbig, and Highsmith. They're doing that even with the backups.
All right, that'll be good to monitor moving forward with that group there. I guess next we should go to the cornerbacks, and with Jalen Ramsey not out there, obviously Joey Porter Jr., Dante Kent. Take us through the rotations. Who was where?
Yeah, it was Asante Samuel Jr. playing left corner with Porter out, and I think the best player on the field on Wednesday, Dave, was Asante Samuel
All
Jr.
right.
Had a breakup on Pittman and early in one period, and then broke up a deep ball, I think, for Metcalf on the right side during one of the other 2-minute situations that they ran today. And so that Samuel was very active in terms of just being competitive, breaking up passes, making plays on the football, and that's of course been his game throughout his career. And so happy he's had the full offseason to focus on football, not rehab and health like he did last year. And thought he had some really quality reps today.
All right. Well, where was Dalen Everett mixing in on this, and Jamel Dean look healthy?
Yeah, Dean looked healthy, working first team right cornerback. Like I said, Brandon Smith had that back shoulder fade on him, but that's a tough play for a corner to break up, especially when you're not going to tackle the guy or risk the injury. McCarthy really harping on wants guys to stay on his feet. Dalen Everett, probably you could call that third team left corner if I had to think about the depth chart in my head. A lot of reps for Deshaun Jameson too. He was kind of getting some inside outside work. Nico Slaughter getting some inside outside work, and so all those guys getting those extra boosts because they're a little shorter at defensive back right now.
All right, and Eccles was first team with the nickel.
Yeah, that's a good point. I should mention that. So first team corners today was Samuel at left corner, Dean at right corner, and Eccles in the slot. Really, Jameson getting second team slot work, a little bit of Devon Boykin later. Slaughter kind of getting a little bit of slot work too. So they're kind of rotating those guys. But yeah, first team definitely went to Eccles. Now, if Ramsey comes back, when he comes back, you'd expect Ramsey to play in the slot a lot, but Eccles picking up really all those reps.
All right. Let's see. How about take us through the safeties? We already mentioned about Deshaun Elliott being slowly worked into this. What were the kind of the pairings you saw moving forward into practice there with that group?
Yeah, when Elliott was out there in the non-11 on 11 stuff, it was him and Brisker. Obviously, when he wasn't in, say, that first team period, 11 on 11, it was Brisker and Darnell Savage
Hmm.
getting work out there. And so those were the first pairing. Savage had a good breakup on a ball for Metcalf over the middle a bit later in practice. Yeah, I would say that Robert Spears Jennings was getting some good reps over top of Sebastian Castro. Jack Henderson also, I think, maybe getting reps over Castro, but I don't know who's playing strong and free and don't have that perfectly down pat yet. But yeah, certainly a little bit thinner there, and that creates reps for Savage and for Spears Jennings and for Jack Henderson to really maximize their playing time.
Where was Daryl Porter mixing in, or is he even in your notes?
He is in my notes once or twice. Let me try to check here. I got to search for not just Porter, but Daryl, since there's two Porters. I got Porter at left corner. He was kind of working, and I at one point here when Porter was at left corner, Samuel at right corner, Eccles in the slot. So, I don't know if Everett, what you could call that third string or not. Again, like I said, there's a lot of rotation, kind of. And this was even kind of the case closer to the end of the Tomlin era, where it wasn't so clean. Your first team and your second team and third team was a little more this guy's getting some rest a little bit, so we're going to bump this guy up a team, and this guy's going to rotate in. So I got Porter though at left corner for one snap today.
All right, Robert Spears Jennings, a handful of snaps, I guess, not many.
Yeah, I would. That's probably a fair summation. Probably some good playing time. I don't have it charted out exactly how many reps it is, but when you're down Ramsey and Elliott's not working full, you only have so many safeties, and so there were a good amount of reps. And saw Spears Jennings getting some gunner work too. I know you've talked about that a lot. I wonder, would he play wing? Where would he align? He was getting a little bit of work with the gunners today.
All right, let's talk about special teams now, or I guess next we should give me kind of your overview. Defense won today. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes.
All right. Any other kind of overviews? You mentioned Asante Samuel Jr. really had a nice day. Was there anybody else? And look, I mean, once again, you don't have pads on. A lot of 7-7, a lot of kind of skeleton type stuff. Anybody else really get close to an Asante Samuel type day?
Yeah, I thought Queen made some plays, competitive. I mean, he had a breakup on that throw to Washington, a breakup in the end zone to Pat Frymouth. So I thought he made some plays. Holcomb was active. The inside linebackers felt pretty active in coverage today, which is certainly a positive. Yeah, I mean, I have my too long didn't read section, camp recap at the end of the post there. Roman Wilson, a couple of moments against zone, but still trying to button up a little bit on the details. Same with Jeremy Bernard. We're seeing a lot of rotation and fluidity with a lot of the lines. Brock Hoffman mentioned the cornerback situation. So, I'd love to sit there. I'm sure some people on Twitter are saying, giving these bombastic declaratory statements about day one. I'm sure I have not looked. I mean, I'm sure it's out there. I'm not gonna be that guy. I'll certainly give a good strong take when I have one, but on day one, just given the environment, there's not a ton to really pull away. But Samuel, good day. Queen, good day. Aller, up and down. Defense won the day overall. Those are my broader thoughts.
All right, let's go to special teams. And you already mentioned that Travis Homer was a first team up back. You said you possibly saw some Eli Heidenreich in there. Was there anybody else in those lines?
In terms of the up man, the personal
Yeah.
protector, no, it was mostly a lot of Homer, and then I caught the tail end of the one rep where Heidenreich was there. Then they swapped back out, went back to the first team, never went back to the second grouping. So I think it was Castro at left wing, Heidenreich as the up back on that second grouping, but that first grouping was definitely Peyton Wilson and then Travis Homer at up back, and then Nowakowski at right wing. If you want the who was on the line group, it was Sawyer, Herbig, Kuntz, Holcomb, and Bruner in terms of the blockers up front. The gunners, it was Skoranek and Eccles, but and I like this, with gunners, they were working in pairs. They'd have a group 15 yards downfield, just working on sort of the angle to the ball after the punt returner caught it. Then they have a separate group working on the line of scrimmage on their releases against the jammers and the vice guys. And so they're kind of, again, maximizing reps, not just two sets of gunners. They're working basically four at a time, working different elements of it. So in terms of who was getting some of that gunner work today, Max Hurlman, Deshaun Jameson, Dalen Everett, Robert Spears Jennings, Darnell Savage. Those are names in my notes, in addition to Eccles and Skoranek, who did that last year during the season. That's older hat for them. And so that's some notes there. In terms of the punt returners, that's what they worked on today, punting and punt returning. It was Caden Weegan, Roman Wilson, and Cole Burgess getting the looks back there, and Cameron Johnson doing all the punting, of course, and had a couple of nice pin deep punts that rolled inside the 10.
All right. About how many snaps do you think they kind of dedicated to special teams today, roughly?
That's a good question. They're done on periods. There's the scoreboard there they use for SVC for the games that has how much time is left in each period. It's probably a 5-6 minute or so. Maybe it's 8 or 9. I'll have to look for tomorrow. So how many reps are you banking on that? You could probably say 15 or so, maybe. I don't have the exact number on that, but
Okay.
A good amount of reps.
All right. Did Mike Tomlin do that right out of the chute with the punt teams or no?
What do you mean exactly?
Like in the first practice, were there periods like in the first practice of training camp with
Of special teams?
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd always have a dedicated special teams period where they were working on one component, whether that's punting, field goal, kick return, and then usually they kind of bring it together in more team-oriented stuff a little bit later in practice. But yeah, there was always one. Frankly, there were probably even more dedicated special teams periods with Tomlin than I saw from McCarthy. It was really just the one today where they did it and they worked on punts. So Tomlin would have probably 3 in a practice. So I would say Tomlin emphasized that more just based on comparing today versus Tomlin.
All right. Did anybody else take a turn because we're nerds at long snapping other than Kuntz?
I did not see it. Usually they won't do it during a period. Usually when those backups long snap, they're doing it before practice just as an on the side type of thing. So I think maybe once or twice Logan Lee took a rep in a team period last year, but I did not see anybody else long snapping. Somebody may have. I mean, Lee did it. Cole Holcomb has a background doing that. Those are emergency options, but in the team period, they want good reps, and so they just want to get the starter out there. And so Kuntz did that. He was being a leader, getting the guys together. Danny Crossman working with the guys on the line. Darian Thompson, the assistant, working with the guys downfield, and so splitting up those responsibilities too.
All right. What are your overarching takeaways from the first training camp practice of 2026?
I mean, like I said, the defense winning the day, if you're into caring about those things, but how different things are, obviously, the pace and the tempo of practice, much different, very noticeable, really the big takeaway, and I'm sure we'll set the tone for the rest of camp as we kind of adjust to what this looks like. Less competition, period, more 7-on-7, a little bit 11-on-11 type of stuff, but yeah, just maximizing, I think, the efficiency of practice where there's really never a dull moment or guys standing around. This thing was pretty much go, 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 green light the whole time. So that's probably how McCarthy will continue to conduct things from here on out.
All right. And once again, we don't get injury updates after practice because McCarthy speaks ahead. You didn't notice anybody nicked up or limping around or anything?
No, not that I saw. I mean, it's first day. It's pretty light stuff. I mean, stuff can happen, and I can certainly miss it and have in the past, but not in my notes. Mason Rudolph jogged off the field at some point. Kind of wondered what was going on with that, but he came back. He's fine. So nothing that I can tell. I do wonder. I guess each morning, maybe I don't know. McCarthy will do an injury report informally, or somebody will ask him. I know Tomlin was always good about that, kind of mentioning guys. So I wonder how McCarthy will handle that. But nope, everything I saw looked good. Again, somebody may have pulled up lame. They might wake up in the morning feeling with something's tight, but I didn't see anything out there today.
All right. What are you expecting? What's the expected length of practice on Thursday?
I'm not even sure. It's a little bit longer than day one, but I don't know what time they have it set at. I think it's still 11:20 start time, so it's probably going to run closer. I think it might be set for 1:00 tomorrow, if I remember correctly.
All right. What did I not ask? Was there anything I should be asking you about? Maybe something else, straggling in your notes or whatnot as we kind of put a wrap on this one?
No, I mean, just some really stuff that doesn't really matter. There's a new building right next to the field that's been built. I don't know what it's for.
I saw that.
Pretty VIP though. It's got some really cushy chairs inside and some kind of picnic chairs on the outside. I don't know who or what that's for, but that is new. So they got the new indoor facility across the street. They got that building. Fans, good crowd today. Not as many people as last year. We'll see if that changes. The weekends, I'm sure, will pick up. But just for it being the morning practice on a weekday, always kind of get a thinner crowd out there. But weather was good, and hopefully that stays that way because I don't care about the heat. I care about rain and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully the skies stay dry.
All right. I forgot to ask you about cameras. How noticeable were more cameras noticeable or no?
I did look for them before practice. I did see them sitting around once practice got started. I mean, I was just trying to focus on the players, and even that was hard to keep up with. So I want to try to make it a point to have some more information on that. I did see them they're sitting there on, they're wheeled around a little bit, and so I want to try to keep a better eye on that. But nothing really that I can tell you about, what it looked like once practice got started.
All right. What's going to be your biggest chore? The splitting of the fields and all like that. Is that going to be your biggest chore moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, when they go dual 11-on-11, I can't watch both in a way that would be effective to any degree, and so yeah, I'm going to have to think about exactly how I'm going to format camp notes and, can I count yardage this year if they're not really doing true drives? That may have to go away. I don't know. We're going to have to kind of play some of this by ear, but I got a ton of notes here and, there's always pros and cons. There'll be a lot of new things to write about and talk about that I'm already thinking about, and there'll be some differences too. So, as we talk about, we don't like change, and so that's always an adjustment for us, and Tomlin's model made it, I think, easier to take some notes there and get some more evaluation type stuff out of it. But we'll see how it looks, and we'll roll with the punches. We always do.
I think kind of the quote of the day might have been from talking about new stuff and changes and all like that. Might have been from Cameron Hayward after practice. Let me see if I can pull that up before I
Is
get
that
us
the
out of here.
dinosaur
Yeah,
comment? Yeah, go ahead.
he says was asked about some of the changes with Mike McCarthy. No, let's see. It was if Cam Hayward embraces change and likes the newness. He says, "I've got to. The dinosaurs didn't, and look what happened to them. So for me, I got to embrace change, and I always think after every year I got to improve. So that's nothing new from how things have changed. So that's a great analogy that the dinosaurs did not embrace change, and look what I got. Maybe I'm the only one that got a chuckle out of that, but I thought that was cute there. All right, Alex, let's do this again on Thursday night, and we'll see how the timing. I kind of like these early evening podcasts. We'll see how close we can kind of stick to that as these go. We'll try to tighten them up a little bit as far as time and all. And for those of you that have not read it yet, you can. The Daily Diary from Alex Kozora after every training camp practice goes up on SteelersDepot.com. A lot more, very, very detailed as people have come to expect over the years, and that should be stickied at the top of the page up until about the time the next training camp practice gets underway. So always look for those on the site as well too. And once again, we'll get back after it on Thursday. So. You can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button and follow the directions that way. So, let's see. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast. And this time, a special edition of the Terrible Podcast, Pittsburgh Steelers Training Camp 2026 with Dave and Alex. Have a good night.